Welcome to episode 273 of Real Health Radio. You can find the show notes and the links talked about as part of this episode at 7, so the word all spelled out, seven.com/273. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Real Health Radio. I'm your host, Chris Sandel. I'm a nutritionist and a coach, and I help clients to fully recover from disordered eating and an eating disorder so that their days are no longer governed by fear and anxiety, and instead they can live a meaningful life that is in alignment with their values. So today on the show, I want to talk about a new program that I'm running. And I've mentioned this in the last episode. I've also sent a couple of emails out about it. But this is something that I've been thinking about doing for a really long time now. And in many ways is rather overdue. I've been working with clients for 15 years now, and this has been one-on-one work. But for a long time, I wanted to start doing group work, and this is where I see more of what I do heading. And I know there are a lot of people in my audience who read my blog posts or listen to the podcast like you're doing now, and they want to just move beyond simply getting more information, getting more facts, and learning how to take that theory and translating it into action. And so this program, it's called the Fundamentals of Full Recovery. And it's a beta. And what that means is that it's essentially the first time that I'm running the program. And it's an opportunity for you to do the first run of the program without me charging the full price of it, and for me to test out the material of the program with you. And when I say test out, it simply means testing it out in this format. Like everything that I'm going to be covering in the program are things that I already work on and work through with my one-on-one clients. And the goal is to then turn this program into something that I run a number of times a year, and allowing me to serve and help more and more people than just the one-on-one work. And I know that there are lots of people who have expressed interest in working with me, and they haven't been able to do that because of either A, there's limited slots available when I do take on one-on-one clients, or because of financial reasons and just not being able to afford to work with me one-on-one. So what I want to do today as part of this podcast is just detail the program and give you a chance to join if it's something that would be helpful for you in your current state of recovery. And I did last week from when this is going out, I did a webinar, and I know that there are lots of people on the webinar and lots of people have watched it live, but also watched the replay. And I also know there are a lot of people who either A, aren't on my mailing list, so didn't even know about that, or B, just aren't going to sit down and watch a webinar. And so I wanted to include the content here so that you can listen to it. So if you're used to listening to podcasts, you can get that information without having to sit down and watch a webinar. So as part of the program, I guess one of the easiest ways for me to sort of talk about this is one of the frameworks that I use, and one of the frameworks that I'm going to be teaching as part of that program. And this is something I kind of thought about more recently in the last kind of 6 months, of just everything that I work on with clients is connected to these sort of 3 areas. And these areas are interconnected and have a knock-on effect on one another. But everything that I work on and teach with clients is about these 3 areas. And I really think that these 3 areas are fundamental to recovery, hence the name of the program. And so the 3 areas are state, story, and structure. And I'll walk through each of these. So state is the state that your body is in. So the physical state, how is your body functioning? And this can be impacted upon by the energy that you have coming in today, but also the energy that has been coming in over the last weeks, months, years. So how much of have you been meeting up with the needs of your body? The state can be how much recovery or healing needs to take place. So if there has been restriction that has gone on for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there's a lot of recovery that needs to take place. The state of your body links to the kinds of symptoms that are arising in your body. And state is also looking at your nervous system and how your nervous system is affecting how you experience and perceive yourself and the world around you. So state is incredibly important. The next one is story. And story looks at the kinds of thoughts that you have, the kind of beliefs that you say that you believe, the meaning that you attribute to various things that happen in your life, the kinds of emotions and sensations that arise. And story is really the feedback that you're getting from your mind and body. So the kinds of thoughts that arise or the kind of sensations that arise. And it's then what you do with that information. And so some of it will be stuff that you act upon. Some of it will be things that you ignore. Some of it will be things that you can discern about and say, even though I'm registering this sensation, I know better than this. And so it's looking at, okay, what is the feedback or what is the information that you're getting? And how do you then relate to that? And then the final piece is structure. And structure is really looking at what is your day-to-day look like? So what are your day-to-day habits? How does your day flow? So what time are you getting up? What are you eating across the day? When are you doing that eating? What's your sleeping like? What are your social connections, your hobbies, your job, your movement or exercise? Are you doing journaling? Like, what is going on in your day, and how is that then having an impact on state, on story, and how all these things interconnected? And I believe that, as I said, all of these three have a knock-on effect on one another, and they can either be helping you to create an upward spiral because of the things that you are doing to support your state, story, and structure, or they can be having a downward spiral because of the things you're doing to support the state, story, or structure. And if I think about this from a recovery standpoint, recovery is about action taking and about doing the things that are pro-recovery that is going to then support you to move forward. And I really believe that eating disorders are anxiety disorders. And anxiety disorders like OCD or anxiety disorders like other anxiety disorders, the gold standard for helping these and for moving through them is exposure. And exposure means taking action. It means doing the things that are uncomfortable. And so success with recovery is then all about taking positive action to then help you move forward. And then the opposite of that is avoidance. So it's avoiding eating the food that you need to eat, or it's avoiding having the rest that you need to have, or it's avoiding setting the boundary that you need to set. It can be avoidance in lots of different ways, but eating disorder recovery is about taking action. And that is really the basis of this whole program. And it's the basis of how I work with one-on-one clients. It's looking at all of the areas where action needs to be taken and doing that. And it can be in a systematic way. It can be looking at what are the easier things to do, or what are the things that are going to have the most amount of impact, but where you're working towards taking action on a consistent basis that is then moving you towards recovery. And so every part of this program is then built on those ideas of like, how can we be doing things to be supporting your state? How can we be doing things to be supporting the story that is arising, and how you can relate to that story? And then how can you be structuring your days and your weeks so that it's moving you in the right direction? And so I want to go through the different weeks that are as part of the program. And I'm teaching this over 12 weeks, and I'll go through what is covered in each of the modules. So in week 1, it's really an introduction to the program and looking at like what causes eating disorders and why they persist. And I really like the biopsychosocial model of eating disorder recovery and eating disorders. So we can talk about that. I talk about, as I've kind of alluded to there, that I believe eating disorders are anxiety disorders and are about avoidance and how to overcome that through action taking. I'll talk about health at every size and an anti-diet approach, as this is very much the way that I think about recovery from eating disorders, and the approach that I take is very much from this lens. I'll look at different frameworks and metaphors to support mindset in recovery, because I think this is really important. And I think this then can link into expectations. And I think expectations play a big role in how someone recovers. Because if you're expecting it to be easy, or you're expecting it to be this thing or that thing, and that's actually not the reality of the situation, that has a very big impact on how you feel about how things are going. So different frameworks and metaphors to really look at, okay, what's a good way of framing this so that I can do the difficult things? Because with recovery, it is very challenging and it's not an easy thing to do. And so how are you still able to take action when that is the situation? We'll also have an introduction into self-compassion. And I think self-compassion is hugely important in recovery. And as I just said, it's a really difficult thing to do, to recover. And if the self-compassion piece is missing, then it makes it kind of nigh impossible to do it. And so we start to look at what self-compassion is, and will be something that comes up again and again throughout the course. So in week 2, we're then looking at the importance of energy for the state of the body and for recovery. And so looking at what happens when there's not enough energy coming in, and how this affects the body and how this affects the mind. We're going to look at the different types of restrictions that can occur. Then also looking at like the importance of nutritional rehabilitation. So why is this so important? What happens as part of nutritional rehabilitation? We're going to look at like what recovery eating can look like, because there isn't one size fits all and one way to do this. I think there are different approaches, and kind of talking about what that can look like. And then we're going to look at how to create space between yourself and your thoughts. And this is kind of known as diffusion. And one of the kind of central tenets of the work I do with clients is looking at the fact that you are not your thoughts. You're a witness to your thoughts. Your thoughts naturally arise. And so looking at different techniques to start to create that distance between yourself and your thoughts. And this is really an introduction into acceptance and commitment therapy. And this is something I use a lot with clients. It's something we'll go into in more detail in the program as we go through. But this is kind of one of the starting points with acceptance and commitment therapy that I think is really important. In week 3, it's looking at how your nervous system impacts on your state. And this is really an introduction into polyvagal theory. And as part of this, we'll look at what are the primary states, what are the mixed states, looking at building up a window of tolerance, co-regulation, self-regulation, the awareness building of just being able to notice, okay, what state am I in, and how is this affecting how I'm perceiving the world, how am I perceiving myself, how I'm having certain beliefs arise to my mind in this moment. And polyvagal theory, in the same way as acceptance and commitment therapy, are really kind of the basis of so much of the work that I do with clients. And so it's kind of giving you that introduction into this. And again, we'll look at it in more detail as we go on. And then in week 3 as well, we're looking at a further exploration into self-compassion and recovery, and looking at an exercise called the Fears of Compassion scale, and having a talk about a lot of the research connected to self-compassion and recovery. And the thing with compassion and self-compassion is it is a learned skill. It's not that this is something you either have or you don't. This is something that is learnable. And so we'll talk about like how to make self-compassion a practice. Week 4 is then a really practical week. And this is looking at different ways of managing story and state, and lots of different exercises and techniques that you can do. And a lot of this is pulling from polyvagal theory, but also acceptance and commitment therapy. And so looking at ways of how can you create safety and create safety anchors, how to deal with difficult thoughts and feelings and sensations as they arise, how to recognize certain emotions, how to label certain emotions. And this is very much, as I said, like practices and a practical week where we'll be going through different ways of dealing with this. Week 5 is then a live Q&A week. And with each of the weeks, there will be questions and answers that are done at the end of each of these calls. But this is then a week that will be the entirety of the call will be about questions. And this one gives you a chance to ask questions, and especially after that, week 4 with a lot of the practical exercises that you're then going to go off and start to implement and see how they work for you. It will then be answering questions around that or any of the content that we've covered up until this point in the course. It also gives you a chance to catch up. So if there has been weeks where you haven't been able to do everything this week, there's going to be no new content. It will just be the Q&A, and so it'll give you a chance to catch up. Week 6 is then looking at the impact of exercise on your state. And exercise is a really big one that I work on with clients. And it can be just as hard, if not more hard, to deal with then changes with food. And so we'll look at navigating exercise in recovery. So reduction or abstinence. We'll look at the importance of psychological flexibility, because I think this is often a missed piece. It can be, well, I don't know if I really need to cut out my exercise or change my exercise for physical reasons. I think my body's able to repair without doing that. And yet, actually, from a psychological standpoint, it's really important to be able to be flexible. And so we'll talk about that, looking at other coping strategies. So if you're not able to exercise or not able to exercise to the degree that you were previously, how do you cope? Because for a lot of people, it is their way of dealing with stress, or it is their way of dealing with uncomfortable feelings. And so looking at other coping strategies outside of exercise or movement, we can talk about like fitness and health and really defining these things, because I think often exercise and fitness and health kind of go hand in hand, and there can be these very narrow definitions of what it means to be fit or what it means to be healthy. And so having a discussion about this and exploring this as a topic. And then as well in week 6, we're going to be looking at grief and how grief is connected to recovery, because I truly believe that recovery is a grief-filled process. There's grief about a changing body. There is grief about losing this way of getting control, or at least the illusion of control, this way of feeling safe. And so there's lots of reasons why grief comes up, and being able to see, okay, these are the 7 stages of grief. And it's not that you go from one stage to the next and the next, and it's linear. You can go back and forth with this, but recognizing, okay, like it makes sense that I'm feeling anger here, or it makes sense that I'm bargaining here, or it makes sense that I'm feeling quite low and depressed here. Like looking at the different stages of grief and what is then going to be expected as you go through this journey. In week 7, we're going to be exploring body image and fears connected to weight gain. And kind of like with exercise, this is something that comes up a lot with clients. And so it's an area that we want to be able to focus on, and looking at a lots of like body checking and weighing and other methods of control, but just really starting to explore like what does body image mean? Because again, I think it's much broader than what most people think about, and actually the solutions are much broader than what most people think about. And so starting to really understand that. We're also going to look at how trauma and neurodiversity and anxiety affect your state. And each of these are very big topics that you could do a whole program on separately. So it's not going to be a real deep dive into all of them, but these are areas that come up a lot with clients. And often, especially with the neurodiversity piece, it's through my work with them that they start to explore this for the first time. And it wasn't something that was even on their radar. And so starting to recognize if this is something that's important and needs a little bit of attention or some further exploration. Week 8, we're going to be looking at identity and values. And I have a pretty long writing exercise that will be done in preparation for this one. And this is one that I use a lot with clients, or really with every client that I work with, and starting to explore what someone's identity is. What are your values? Looking at things like meaning and purpose, and really being able to use these ideas as a guide, as something to help you navigate recovery, where it's, if this is what I say my values are, what kind of decision would I make in this moment? And so really using this as kind of like a North Star. We'll look at beliefs and mindset as part of this, and how much they can be affected by the state that you're in, and the kinds of beliefs that come to mind because of that. We'll also look at other ways that state is impacted upon, namely like sleep and digestion. And these are things that can improve with recovery, but they can also get worse with recovery, especially in the short term. And so just understanding, okay, this is what is likely to happen or could happen as part of this. And I think often there can be this feeling of, I must be doing something wrong with my recovery if certain things are getting worse. And actually that's not the case. It can be common that your energy gets worse as part of recovery before it gets better. It can be common that your sleep gets worse, or your digestion gets worse, or lots of symptoms get worse before they get better. And so just giving that information so you understand why that is the case, and that this is likely to occur or could occur. Week 9 is a break week. And so there's going to be no call. There's going to be no new content during week 9. Again, this is going to be a chance to catch up on anything that hasn't been caught up on. It could be a chance to do some more of the practical exercises that we've talked about throughout the course. In week 10, we're going to look at weight set point and the body's ability to regulate itself and regulate its weight. And I think this is kind of like a double-edged sword. I think it's really useful to know this information. And I think this can be something that becomes focused on way too much. And so we're going to look at it, and I'm also going to talk about like why it's best not to focus on this piece too much, and the downside when that starts to happen. We're going to look at sort of setting up structure for success and setting yourself up for success. And a lot of this will then be looking at like, how do you do action taking versus delaying or avoiding? And this can be for lots of different things, whether we're talking about eating, whether we're talking about exercise, clothes shopping. We'll look at things like fear foods and fearful eating situations. And yeah, really how you can start to figure out what are all the things that I'm avoiding, or what are all the things that I need to do as part of my recovery, and then start working through these. And as part of this, looking at recovery goal setting and what that looks like, and how is best to be doing this. In week 11, we're going to look at intuitive eating in recovery. And this is towards the very end of the course for a good reason. I think a lot of the time in recovery, people try and use intuitive eating, or at least try and use hunger and fullness as kind of the only parts of intuitive eating that they're trying to apply. And because so much of the body's feedback has been messed up as part of recovery, and I say messed up, but I mean in a temporary sense. I think this is all things that can come back, and you can learn how to navigate this. But in the beginning, trying to use hunger and fullness isn't necessarily the best option and the best approach. And so I'll be going through the 10 principles of intuitive eating and how they can apply for recovery, and where they're appropriate or not appropriate. We'll look at things like relapse and the ups and downs of recovery, because I think that recovery is not linear. And I think there can be this real misconception about what recovery can look like based on different stuff online or different books that people read. And so I want to have a real honest discussion about this and about what recovery really looks like, because it's not nice and clean and straightforward in the way that most people think it may be. And as part of this as well, we'll look at what full recovery looks like and how long it will take to get there. And the kind of spoiler alert with this thing is how long it takes to get there is it will depend. And it will depend on how long the eating disorder has been going on, how you're approaching recovery, how much things are changing, how quickly things are changing. So it will depend. And in terms of what full recovery looks like, there's sort of early stages of what this looks like, and then there's sort of exploring what this looks like bigger picture, because I do believe that eating disorders aren't just about food. And you can get over an eating disorder from a food perspective where you're not doing things with food as a way of getting that sense of control or using it as a coping mechanism or whatever it may be. And then you start becoming a workaholic, or you start doing things with online shopping, or you start using alcohol in a certain way. And so it's starting to look at how an eating disorder can then show up in other ways outside of food, and how to kind of approach this so that you do truly reach a place of full recovery. And then the week 12 is a live Q&A, and this will be then answering any final questions that are coming up based on everything that we've covered. And there's obviously a lot that we'll have covered by that stage, but it gives everyone a final chance to ask their questions and to really just know how to then keep moving forward with it. Because while the program is called the Fundamentals of Full Recovery, over 12 weeks, no one is going to be fully recovered. Right? Full recovery takes much longer than that. The point of the program is like teaching you the things that are most important for recovery. And if you then do those things and keep it up, then you will reach that place of full recovery. But it's not going to happen over those 12 weeks. And so this Q&A can then allow you to ask questions about like moving forward and how to continue to do that. And so with the calls each week, they're going to be starting on Tuesday, the 23rd of May. So that will be from when this goes out, it'll be like next Tuesday. And there will be live calls, and they'll be for 90 minutes. And the live calls will be done via Zoom. And all of the calls will be on Tuesday. So the first one, I said Tuesday starts 23rd of May, and they'll be at 7 p.m. UK time. So British summertime. I think it's BST instead of GMT. There'll be 1 week, which is week 3, where it won't be on a Tuesday. It'll be on a Thursday. And so that's Thursday, the 8th of June, but all of the rest are on a Tuesday night. The calls are recorded. And so if you can't make the live recording, there will be recordings of them. Or if you want to make the live and then listen to them again, you can also do that. You can also submit questions in advance as well. So if you're not going to be on the call, but you want to get a question answered, I can then answer it as part of the Q&A of the call. And with the live calls, they will include me sharing live content. So I've just kind of gone through a lot of what the live content will be. There's a lot more than that, just that, but that's kind of like the overview for each of the weeks. I'll then be doing live coaching as well. So there'll be times where I'm going to be working with someone one-on-one there, and everyone will get to see that happen. I'll be also answering questions. So as I said, there'll be questions, answers at the end of each of these. Between calls, there will be homework. And so this can include journaling exercises. It can include questionnaires. It can include like practical exercises that you are doing. And then throughout, you're going to be setting goals and working towards these during our time together. And so I now want to just go like through who this is for and who this is not for. So the Fundamentals of Full Recovery is a good fit for you if you are ready to recover and you want the guidance and the support you need to kind of just make this a reality. It's a good fit if you've been trying to do recovery on your own by watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts or reading blog posts or reading recovery books. And so translating that, like just consuming more and more information into like, how do I make this actionable? It's for you if you've been focusing solely on going all in, and this has really been your only recovery plan. Because I do believe that more food and nutritional rehabilitation is hugely important as part of recovery. And I also believe it's not the only thing that is important for recovery, and that there are many other aspects that are important, both in terms of helping you being able to recover and deal with the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings and sensations that arise, and also lots of tools and practices and techniques that are then needed and useful after nutritional rehabilitation has been done, and how to then get to a place where you are at full recovery and the thing is not coming back. It's a good fit for you if you've been focusing more on the psychology or the therapy part, but you've then been staying much more in the realm of theory rather than action taking. And I see that this is also really common. So some people, it's just all about eating the food and going all in, and that's kind of it. And for other people, it's about like exploring childhood stuff or relationship with parents or this thing that happened in high school or whatever it may be. And it's still just a lot of talking and not then doing the things that are important in terms of recovery. So this is good if that's where you've been stuck. Or if you've been trying to recover, but doing this in really sort of eating disorder approved ways. So eating a little bit more, or reducing your exercise by a small amount, or allowing recovery, but only if there's no weight gain. So if you've been trying to do recovery in that very eating disorder approved way, or that really safe way, and you're recognizing it's not getting you where you want to get to, then this is going to help for that. And so who this is not for? So this is not for you if you aren't ready to recover yet, or you're wanting to be convinced for why you should do it. And whenever I have my initial discovery calls, recovery strategy calls for a one-on-one client, I am always saying, like, I'm not in the convincing game. Like, if I'm trying to convince you about why you should recover, it just doesn't work. And especially it doesn't work when I'm not an inpatient facility. I'm not there 24 hours a day. I'm not forcing you to eat. I'm not there doing all of those things that inpatient can do for someone. And I mean, I still believe that inpatient is going to be ineffective if someone doesn't want to recover. And so if you're at that stage where you're like, I still don't think I need to recover, I don't think this is a problem, or I kind of want to recover, but someone needs to convince me why this is really important, then this is not for you, because I can't be convincing you. And I don't think it really ever works, because the more I try and convince, the more there's all the reasons why this is not the right thing to do then get generated in yourself, and it then just becomes more of like a debate or an argument, and that's just not what this is about. This is for people who are ready and wanting to recover. And when I say ready, there can be ambivalence. It's not that you're 100% ready. It can be like, I want to do this thing, and I'm also scared, and I think it would be the right thing to do, but I can also see all these reasons why it's not. Like, that's completely normal. But if it's, I'm really not interested in recovery and I need to be convinced why I should be, this is not for you. If you're simply looking for more information but don't want to take any action, then this is also not for you. There is a lot of podcasts I put out. There are a lot of blog posts I put out. There's a lot of content around there. If you're just wanting to build more information, don't waste your money participating in this. You should just use all the free resources you've got to gather more information. This really is about taking action and how to take action and the ways of doing that. And so if you're not ready or willing to take action, then this is not for you. It's not for you if you need lots of hand-holding, or if you struggle if someone isn't telling you exactly what to do every step of the way. And so with the program, we're having the 90-minute calls each week. And then outside of that, it's up to you to then be implementing that. And so there's not email support outside of the program the way that I do with one-on-one clients. It really is you taking the content from the program and then sort of going forward with that. And even with one-on-one clients, like, it's a very collaborative approach, but they're still the ones that have to take the action. As I said earlier, like, I'm not an inpatient facility. This is people who are like, okay, tell me how to do some of the things, or let's figure out together what I need to do, and then I'm going to go and do it. And so if you're someone who is unable to do that, you need a ton of hand holding, or you're someone who needs every single step completely outlined for them, then this is not the right program for you. And if you want one-on-one work and you don't want to be in a group setting, this is obviously not for you. This is a group program, and there's going to be group participation, or at least it's going to be delivered with people on a call in a group setting. And so, yeah, if really you just want one-on-one support, then I'm happy to do that, but that's not in this format. That's something separate to this. So this program is not for one-on-one. So in terms of the offer details, there are 2 payment options with this. So you can do one payment of £897, or you can do 3 payments of $347 per month. And this price is significantly reduced to what I think I'm going to charge when I do the full program. As I said, this is the beta version of the program, so we're doing all the calls live. There is no pre-recorded content. And this is why I'm doing it at this significantly reduced price. It's likely that it will be double this when I do the full program. And because of that reason, that there is no refunds as part of this beta. But for those who participate in the beta, you'll also have lifetime access to the program. And then you can also participate in future rounds of the program at no extra cost. So I'm planning on running this again. It will be starting around late September time. And so if you're part of the beta, when I run it again in the September time, you can participate in the calls and participate in the program then. So really, if you want a chance to work with me at the lowest price possible, this really is it. And this opportunity isn't lasting very long. Like, your chance to sign up for this ends on Wednesday, the 17th of May. So like a couple of days from when this is going to be released. And then after that, you'll have to wait until September this year, late September this year, to do the program then. And as I said, it will be at a significantly higher price point. So if you do want to join, you can email info@7-health.com with the subject line of group program, and you can then grab your spot by doing it that way. And you've got until midnight of Wednesday, the 17th of May to do that. So that is it for this week's episode of the podcast. I wanted to outline this. As I said, I done a webinar on this recently, and I just know that there's lots of people who won't have watched the webinar, but will listen to the podcast. And those are all the details. I am really excited about this. This is something, as I said at the beginning, this is really long overdue. This is where I see more of my work heading, because I really want to be able to help more people than just the one-on-one work. And I also want to be able to harness the positive community aspect of a group program. And so having the support of other people, getting to see what it's like for other people going through recovery, and that you're getting that support of those who are doing something incredibly difficult alongside you. So that is it. If you're interested, as I said, email info@7-health.com and the subject line of group program. I will be back shortly with a new episode, but until then, take care of yourself, and I will catch you soon.